Well, good evening, good evening. Well,
Uh,
welcome to another Monday's Airfix and Chill. And there was an announcement that is it the Tamiya's younger brother passed away?
yeah,
Wow. So, again, Airfix and Chill want to send out our condolences to the family of the, is it Tamiya? Is it the brothers, wasn't it? Was it the younger brother?
young,
Uh,
yeah, he was
passed
87.
away. Yeah. So again, our condolences go out to the family and to the manufacturer themselves. And yeah, quite a shock. Because I don't think he was lined up to take over the business, was he? I
No,
think he was
no,
just part of the family, really.
he retired, didn't he? So he
Yeah.
was develop model kits for them. So
Yeah. But yeah,
This was
quite
the brother that designed the logo, correct?
the logo.
yeah,
Allegedly,
so.
yeah, I believe so. So yeah. Whilst that news had broke, I thought we would talk about the endless Facebook posts and discussions we've been seeing today. As we're current, anyway, we try to be as current as we can about the companies that are being affected shipping to the US of A. And it's not just companies in England or in Britain, there are companies in Europe, companies around that are saying that until the situation resolves itself or there is a workaround, is what the word was being used, workaround, they've stopped all shipping to the United States. I've not heard anything from the likes of Tamiya, Revell, Airfix. But I'm under the impression that they have their own supply line, which probably they've probably got limited companies out there trading. I know Revell USA or Revell of Germany. It's all under the same umbrella, but they have companies already, or they're not subsidized. What's it called? There's a word for it, isn't there? But companies that deal with these sort of things, Revell, Tamiya. But I'm assuming that when these taxes and tariffs come in, they will be somewhat affected in some way. Obviously, small businesses are really worried about it. Hence, all the posts being put up. As I said, I've gone looking, and I said major manufacturers have not. I think Edard might have put something up, but this is nothing new to us in the UK, because when we left the eurozone and Brexit and everything else, we found that we were struggling to buy model kits and accessories and having to go through 3 or 4 extra hoops to get certain things. And there's a real well, not real damage, I should say, but there's one company that doesn't deal with customers anymore in the UK, and that's Revell. And I don't think you can get a Hella either. I think if you go onto the Hella website, I don't think they ship directly to the United Kingdom. You have to go they only deal B2C. They don't deal B2C. They only do B2B, which is business to business or business to customer.
Yeah.
So
I think the word you were looking for was earlier.
What's that? Sorry?
Looking distributor.
Distributor. Yeah, but but there's also the S word I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it's an Airfix have got Hornby Hobbies USA. Revell have got Revell USA. Tamiya have got Tamiya USA. So but I thought I'd bring it up because we know the pain that the Americas are feeling, because we had the same issue, and it has kind of ironed itself out. But when it happened to us with Europe, when we left, we found that it wasn't just companies in Europe. Now, when we get stuff sent from China, it comes with another form saying that the customs have been declared. So taxes and tariffs have always been and always will be subsidiary. That's the word. Brennan's got it right. Subsidiary. I get it out. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I can't say it. I'm gone thick. But yeah, but I thought, while we got Jim on, how's the scale modeling community in America taking on, or what have they been saying about these new tariffs and taxes that have been laid on by? And we're going to try not to be political, but obviously politics is going to come into the conversation. We're not declaring if we're Trump supporters or nothing like that. We're just talking about it from this angle. How does the Americas feel that this is going to happen to them? Because obviously they're going to be paying more for the products they're getting.
Well, I would say the American scale modeling community is a microcosm of America. So it's split 50-50, just like everything else is in this country, you know? So there you go. It's, I've been engaged in, I want to say debates, but a few discussions in Facebook groups, and it falls right down, unfortunately, around the political lines, and one side's spinning it their way and the other side's spinning it their way, and it's in between. There's a whole lot of hypocrisy, and there you go. So,
do they see it as a good thing in America for these taxes and tariffs?
The more vocal people know, because they're taking the side that it's, this is horrible, and see, this is what you get when you vote this way, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I've got 3 lifetimes worth of stuff here that I'll never get to, and I don't need any of it. And you get these guys on here, well, I need the latest and greatest kit. No, you don't. You don't need any of it. You need shelter, food, medicine, and water. Those are needs. Air, when you get down to brass tacks. But this is just a luxury. And if you can't do without it, well, then you got bigger issues.
You've not seen anybody complain that certain things have been out of stock because of this yet, I guess, because it's quite a new.
Way too early for any of that to transpire. I mean, this doesn't even go into effect until, what is it, today, or
September, I believe.
September, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. So I don't know. I got a big box of res kit coming in today, so woo, and here's the thing: the ones that are complaining about all this, and it's just like you just said, Moz, they lean one way. And that way that they lean is very popular in other European countries, where all you guys have always had to do this. Okay, so now they're complaining about something the rest of their brethren across the planet have had to do forever. And I'm kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
And be that as it may, it's it's the free market. If you want it, you're going to have to pay for it, and if you can live without it, then you don't pay for it. It's simple. As far as
I will stress that the biggest shitter for us is the cost that the postal supplier add on to that tax. So,
because aren't they acting, or at least over here, the U.S. Postal Service will be acting as an agent on behalf of customs to collect.
Yes, that is the issue. Now, for instance, I had something sent to me from another country. I can't remember which one it was. I'll tell you what it was. It was these bloody things here, the Hobby Zone things.
That would have come from Poland.
Yeah, they came from Poland. And what happened was, it went over 200 quid. Now the tax on that was, don't quote me on this, we're just going to give you a round figure. It was about £22 of tax I needed to pay on this, right? But the Royal Mail added on like 17 quid for their fee, for me to pay them that money plus their fee, for them to take that money and then put it to the government, and that is con in this game, is that UPS, DPD, Royal Mail all do the same. Have you got that in America, Jim?
No, because not that I am aware of, because that's like you just said, that's another fee. So right now, because this is all new for us, because we've never had to pay customs on anything, okay, and tariffs and all this kind of stuff. It's come in. And it may come in the future. I don't know who knows how this plays out, but now you're going to be paying. So you'll pay tax. Like say you buy something on eBay, you pay the tax. That's already factored in. The government's going to get the money. They found a way. eBay will charge that. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're going to pay a customs fee, and that customs fee will be collected by United States Postal Service, as far as I know. But as far as of right now, there has been no talk of an additional fee for the Postal Service to do that.
Yeah.
And you might get some balking because that's one government agency working for another government agency to collect a tax form, and now they're going to charge you to collect that tax on behalf of another agency that doesn't want to do it themselves because they can't. They physically.
Thank you very much.
So, I who knows how it all happens and works out, but it's the unfortunate thing, but it's also, I think, the beautiful thing about free markets. The market will dictate. You know.
That's interesting. As I said, it just as somebody who sells regularly online, there's always been some sort of tariff or tax to America. Hence why we always ship through the eBay global shipping program. So if somebody wanted to buy an item through us, they would then pay the taxes and the tariffs direct. And the reason why we used the eBay platform for that was that there were times that we were sending stuff to America, and when they saw the bill at the end, they wouldn't accept the parcel, and we would lose that parcel. They would claim an item not received, claim against us, and we would lose those funds. So that's why we only sell now to that. And that was around the world as well. That's but it wasn't so, as I said, it wasn't so bad in America, but it was like after Brexit, Germany was terrible for it. They were really ramping up how much we were paying. But then so I didn't have to collect the taxes then, whereas there are now companies that will collect that VAT from us at point of sale. So I'm presuming you've got, I think who was it? It was somebody on the chat said that Hella will ship to the UK for $17.99. If you could bring that one up, James, I can't see it at the minute. But yeah, that's right. I found it now. It was will ship to Scotland for €17.99 from France. I just tried the website, but there'll also be a box there where they will either take the VAT or add the VAT onto that product as well. So you won't actually pay taxes in that country, which is what I was saying about the Americans have been quite savvy. So, for instance, a £10 item to us, we would have paid £2 VAT on that. But because it's going outside the country, there's no VAT on that product. So they'll only add the value or the tax that America would. So they may only put like 10% on top of it, if you know what I mean. So instead of you paying the 20% tax in this country, you're only paying 10% tax to their country. That's another way of looking at it. But yeah, it's blowing up all over the internet, and people are being a bit worried about it. But like everything, because it's the unknown, I think there's fear in that being unknown.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on this, Ben? Because you buy from Europe a bit with your bits.
So I buy from Europe. So I come at it from several angles. I come at it from when I was dealing in the model trade through Brexit and the problems that did for us as both buying and selling into the European market, but also come from it as my degree in that is in politics and IR and tariffs and all that is part of that as well. I mean, the thing is with the American one is that doing a quick bit of research, the threshold of $800 came in about 9 years ago. Previously, it was about $200. So, there has always been some form of tariff. It's just now that this government, because I won't use particular's name, we'll keep it neutral. The government has now decided that they'll lower the value to basically nothing. And from So where Jim talks about the free market, I would argue it's not free market, because free market would mean you wouldn't have to have tariffs. There would be nothing, and you would just simply let the market decide. The fact that the government intervenes shows that it's not particularly free market, and it's also one of the criticisms the Americans had heavily of Europe. And again, it's I think for the hobby, it's going to do them damage. I think it will do the Americans more damage. I think tariffs are great in the short run. They're very good to readdress the balance, but the more often you use them and the longer you put them in, and the fact if you are not strategic with them, whereby you start firing tariffs out left, right, and center, the market will adjust, and then the market will basically ignore you, and the market will work around you. And if that carries on for so long, the market will then avoid you. So I think the Americans have to be a little bit careful for what they wish for, in terms of, by all means, have your tariffs, have this sort of thing. But I mean, from Brexit, I'll be perfectly honest, Brexit was an unmitigated disaster from an economic point of view. It's one of the first times that a country has effectively put sanctions on itself to stop trading with its biggest partner. There is obviously the whole political argument, which I won't go into, but the economics were that effectively the economy is possibly anywhere between 5 to 10% smaller than it should have been if we had stayed in the EU. You know, and the fact that there is all this bureaucracy now of small companies having to now take the charge of filling out the paperwork, doing all this, whereas before, again, we were in a customs union, that paperwork was not required. So goods were cheaper. So goods will naturally go up in cost for the Americans. The interesting thing, though, is, like you say, I think Airfix, Tamiya, and sort of Revel, who all have United States branches of their particular companies, haven't announced anything. And I think that possibly works in a similar way to military companies, which I've dealt with in another job, whereby, for example, BAE is not BAE Systems UK, it's BAE USA. And if they're American-owned companies, they may be exempt because, again, they want to support the American industry. So it may be a case that, for example, Edward, as a supplier and a distributor and a manufacturer, there may be an alternative of, if they open an Edward USA and they import directly to Edward USA makes the purchasing and produces in, the States, then they may be exempt from any tariff regimes and all that sort of thing. But I think the fact that the government has decided to do this is going to prove a big headache, and it will also be interesting to see that sort of you've just had your Nats, haven't you, Jim, about a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago. What next year's Nats will look like and how many traders from Europe come over, because, for example, will their stock be subject to tariffs that they're then going to sell in the United States that they're bringing over? Because I think that will then stop a lot of traders coming from Europe, because the Americans, as a percentage of the market, there's not a lot of them. So how is that going to affect, shows, trade, etc.? I think we won't see that for months, but I don't think it was a wise idea to do. It's my personal and professional.
To be fair, we had 1, maybe 2 European traders at our Nats in a huge vendor room. We had Edward and maybe AK.
Okay, so but in terms of the other way to phrase it, then in terms of your domestic traders, how many have got what would be European foreign products, effectively European Chinese, like on their stalls?
And there again, there's another difference between us. And nationals wise, we don't have companies coming in. We have private retailers, okay, usually mom and pops that are selling these kits, okay. We don't have Meng coming in or Revel coming in or all these. Tamiya will come and they'll display, they won't sell. So,
but that's more to my point, though, of you've got small vendors, not companies. How are small vendors going to be able to stomach the costs of buying the goods? Because
they don't sell in the traditional sense where they go out and they buy. The 2 biggest retailers in that building was Andy's Hobby Headquarters and Squadron. Okay. I guarantee you one of those two won't be at the next two nationals just because of the sheer cost alone of going to the show and logistics of shipping everything. And it's just not profitable for them to do. Okay. And the next two are still going to be in the East. He's coming from all the way out here. You know, Andy, I doubt very seriously if you'd see him at the next two. Now, Squadron, the other guy, yeah, he's going to be there because he's already there. It all comes down to their costs and can they reap benefit from that. And yeah, getting kits in, as of right now, both of them have said that they don't anticipate a problem. Edward's come out and said I saw him talking to Sprue Brothers directly at the show because historically, Edward will bring all their stuff in, and what they don't sell, Sprue Brothers buys, and then he retails it, so they don't have to ship it back home.
Okay? But in terms of how are smaller to medium retailers going to be able to absorb the cost of the tariffs?
They will be, because they're a bigger. It's different for Andy, Sprues, or Squadron to go out and buy a big load of stuff than it is for me, you, or you know, anybody in the States to go to Edward directly. And that was what Edward was saying. We're not going to ship to you directly. Well, I've never ordered from Edward directly. Why would I? I get it from the three big retailers here.
No, but what I'm saying is,
but Ben, I think you've got to realize is that, Jim explained this when he was talking about scale model shows in America, is that when you look at our scale model show, it is like a trade show as well, where you have so many people selling product and model kits. Whereas in America, it's more about what they're showing in their displays. There's not that many retailers.
But I'm not talking about model shows specifically. I'm talking about retailers as a whole. Most of them are what we'd call small and medium enterprises. How are they going to, apart from the big three, we'll call them, how are they going to be able to?
We don't have any small shops. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
We have private individuals that will come with 30, 40, 50-year-old kits in cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Or we have, and that's why, again, over there when I was in Telford last year, that's what amazed me about the vendors.
But I'm not talking specifically about.
You've got all these companies, all these shops, literally shops, like Alex's. He has a shop. Okay, we don't have that over here.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. But forget the shows then. Normal shops in America, how are they going to be able to swallow the increased cost of all their goods?
Honestly, Ben, we don't have that many shops over here. We really don't. A lot of, because they're being killed by online.
Yeah.
Okay?
But then okay, then is the online retailer, will there be enough massive, because this was a concern after Brexit for us, will there be enough massive shop to the hobby backsliding into a cottage industry? Because once
I would say we're already in a cottage industry and we're going the other way, because now we do have Squadron was a big retailer since the 60s. They closed up shop. Brandon Lowell came in with his dad and his brother. They bought it. They've resurrected it. It's huge now. Sprue Brothers is huge. Andy's is huge. Okay. And Andy has a direct link to Europe. Okay. So why? I just don't anticipate it being that big of a problem, because we've got three big retailers of a lot of this stuff. What's going to be kind of harder to get is the small detail, intricate little, 3D shoots out of Taiwan or something.
Yeah.
The garage industries that it's one guy operating in another country, and like Hypersonic, Kopecky, all these guys, these little mom and pops. It's one dude drawing, hitting the print button, and trying to sell internationally. That's where I see more of an issue.
Just going over to the comments, we've had quite a few so far. Akula saying, is Airfix going to be spun off as a separate company and moved to a new site? Not that I know of. We wish. I haven't noticed any changes thus far here in Indiana, USA. That's not to say we won't see changes. Comment, high tax on postage around the world is becoming the government's. It's all because the governments around the world and companies around the world are getting greedy. You just wait to come to the end of the tax. Okay, fair enough. I don't know if it's still the case, but a few years ago, I found that items marked as gifts don't get such huge charge from Royal Fail. That changed, mate. That definitely don't. They X-ray parcels now and everything. Lox9, these online retailers abroad must be sick of the postage rates that cost about £6 a few years ago, now cost around £20. Yeah, it's expensive. And then maybe the high street model shop will win out in the end because postage rates will be too high. Yeah, it doesn't really affect us in the long term in this country, if you know what I mean. You know, if it's in the country, shops can buy it. It's getting it into the country by these distributors. And
yeah, I think that's where it's getting slightly cross-wired of where I'm going at is there's going to be an increased cost per model kit that there is going to be an increase in cost. One, does the American businesses have the muscle to be able to take that increased cost on, and will the consumer actually be happy to pay that increased cost? That's more of what I'm talking about, because
that's the main thing with any tariff is whether because a business. So I'm looking at myself, right? If we had the same thing in the UK, if the UK decided, okay, we're going to get a 20% tax on kits coming from Japan, stuff coming from Japan. The Tamiya kits would be 20% more. I can't absorb that. There is no way. I wouldn't make any money. No. So it'd be pointless me selling them. So I'd have two choices. I can either pass that on to the consumer, which of course everybody else will also do, or I can not stock those kits anymore.
Yeah.
Now, Tamiya kits sell, so I would put the prices up.
Yeah.
As would everybody else, and so it's passed on to the end consumer. So it's really, what is the demand for those products? Because if there's enough demand, people will carry on. It could get to the point where, say, an Edward kit, if an Edward kit in the US, say it's $30 now, if it ends up costing $45, somebody might look at it and say, well, this isn't unique enough
for
me to want to buy this. And then you very soon know, as a retailer, even if you're operating only online, if you've got a stock of kits which aren't shifting, then it's usually because the price is too high, because people don't see the value proposition. So you're not going to buy any more stock of that. And if you don't buy the stock, the wholesalers are going to end up with more in their warehouses, and they're going to be like, look, there's no point in us getting this Edward stuff in anymore. We'll just cease that agreement. So I think Edward are kind of almost anticipating that and saying, look, we can't deal with the shipping companies, so we're going to cut that off. We're just going to focus on these imports to our wholesalers, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
But unfortunately, as with any tariff, and this is the argument that's been going on since Trump had his big fit, the consumer will end up paying. So unfortunately, it's the US consumer that is poor for it, and US modelers that potentially suffer less choice in the future, because ultimately that's what it'll come down to is will those kits be available because they're just not worth it, or okay, I want to buy it, but I've got to pay X amount extra to get it.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, but then like I was saying at the beginning, Alex, we've been wheedling this since we left Europe. We were finding that we were getting emails from UPS saying, oh, we've got a parcel here for you, a little email just saying pay this and we'll send it to you, and the tax was like a £5, and there was 17 quid for the privilege of them taking that £5 off us. And that's the con. I'm all well and good with paying my taxes and stuff, I get it, but when they do things like that is a money train. And that was always been the worst thing about it.
Yeah, because really, as an importer, I got some. This will sound ridiculous. Black and white cards. They're called drawdown cards, but there was specific optical quality and stuff. But I got them, so I got 1,000 of them because it's pointless buying them in small amounts, right? From a company in Germany. And they told me exactly what the shipping costs would be and what the likely taxes would be, the import duties. And that is absolutely what you want to hear, because it's like, that's great. Okay. So the overall cost to me, I know. What I don't want is, okay, I'm going to pay this much and then find out when it arrives that there's, 50% more added on tax, because now all of my profitability calculations have gone out the window.
Yeah.
So it's the knowledge of what it is beforehand. if you know beforehand what something's going to cost, you can make an informed choice. But yeah, when you get a thing from the Royal Mail which says this postcard has cost you £8 because you got £16.67 to pay customs charge, so now you got £24.67.
Yeah,
It's like that's a kick up the arse.
yeah. That's an interesting world of plastic modeling. Games Workshop anticipates a negative financial impact of around 12 million due to new imposed US tariffs on imports, which are expected to reduce gross margins by approximately 2%. While not explicitly stating as a plan, the tariffs on imports will inevitably lead to increased costs for Games Workshop, which could be passed on to US consumers, resulting in higher prices. And I'll tell you this much, Games Workshop isn't cheap at the start. You know what I mean? It's mega bucks.
Although a 2% fall in gross margin for Games Workshop, considering they've just announced their greatest profits ever, is like, here's the smallest violin in the world playing for them.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Oh, you're muted, Jim.
Riddle me this one. You know, I think my internet hiccuped there. How am I now?
You're good,
Mate.
Am I frozen?
You're in, mate.
I'm good. Am I back?
Yeah, riddle me this, you said.
Okay. Everything went blank for a second.
Yeah.
No. So riddle me this. So Games Workshop loses the US customer, let's say. And now they need to make that price up that they're losing. Who's that going to get passed on to? Everybody else.
Yeah. That's a good
because
shout. Actually.
Nobody wants to lose money. It's one side wants to say they want to make companies pay their fair share. Companies never pay their fair share. They always pass it along. Corporations are out to do one thing: make money, not pay taxes. You as the consumer are the one that pays the taxes in any business.
Yeah. Just out of asking then, so I don't really know what was. I'm assuming that these taxes and tariffs have been implemented because even though we could ship to America, say we wanted to ship a car to America, that there was very low tariff and taxes on that car. But when they wanted to ship their cars to us, the taxes and the tariffs were far higher. So like it was an uneven playing field. Is that what I'm getting from this?
There's two things. There is the imbalance. We'll say the China. Okay, we import as a lot of countries do. Import all kinds of stuff, but do they import from us?
Yeah.
Well, very, very little. So there's an imbalance there. Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's the other thing, and I think what's really at the core of this is we need to bring this stuff back home. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would think that would be good practice for any country. Don't become reliant and dependent on other countries for vital needs. Okay. You need to be doing that yourself as much as you can. Granted, there's natural raw materials that have to be considered, but should any country really be importing food? Now, granted, not every climate can grow everything. Yeah, you got to import bananas because you're not going to grow bananas in Britain. I get it, but medicines, that would probably be one big thing that every country should be making their own supply of. Take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
So I think at its core, it's a way to generate revenue. But I think more at its core, it's to get businesses to, hey, bring it back home.
I think that is a noble idea, Jim. But that is not even if you took it that Donald Trump did that on day one, it's not a 4-year plan. That won't happen within 10 to 15 years, never mind about 4 years. You can't upend 50 years of global trade in on the flip of a switch. If you built a plan to work up to it and then you impose the sanctions, it would make sense.
Yes.
But what he's done is the opposite way around. You can't flip the switch and then say, right, now build everything here. It's like, well, the US doesn't have titanium. Russia has titanium. You can't. The whole point of a global economy is that we do have unequally distributed resources across the earth. So no country. There isn't. In fact, I don't think there is a single country on Earth that has all of the resources it needs for everything it needs. We don't have the land to make the food for ourselves. That was the whole thing about World War II. How we could have lost was the U-boats in the North Atlantic cutting off our food supplies from Canada, because Canada was the Commonwealth's breadbasket, basically. So there was. I think it's kind of almost it's a good idea in a kind of academic sense, but it's kind of a retrograde step for.
But like I said earlier as well,
global
Alex,
politics.
But like I said earlier as well, he's not using them in a strategic manner. He's firing them off gun ho, depending on what side of the bed he wakes up on. He'll start putting taxes on different states. I mean, for example, like Switzerland, just randomly I think went from 33% then up to 39%, and then the Swiss were holding an emergency cabinet meeting trying to work it out, and then he sort of went, well, actually we didn't mean it to do it on Switzerland, so we're changing it slightly. And you can't have, from a political point of view, you can't bring in that sort of business bullying nearly into the world of politics and into economies of that scale. It doesn't work. And you have to have a strategic plan on how you're going to do this. Tariffs are strategic. They're not just to be thrown out willy-nilly. And like I said earlier, if the actual global economy catches on to this, they'll basically go, he's not using them strategically, we'll work around him. And then you can start doing supply chains around him, much like the world supply chain has now gone around the Suez Canal. Because of the Houthis, it now goes via South Africa. Took a couple of years, but it only took 2 to 3. And the Americans could very much easily be written out of the world economy, and that then lets Chinese and other parties straight in.
The only thing I will say about that, though, Ben, is that America will never lose that economy, because every barrel of oil that's traded in the world is traded with the dollar. And if you want oil, you've got to give something to America to get that dollar, and then you can buy oil.
But even Trump wants to get rid of the dollar as the reserve currency. He does it because it makes American products expensive. He wants that is one of his ultimate goals. So that's what I'm saying. He is a businessman. He's not a politician. He doesn't actually really understand the economics of foreign policy. It's not just a business deal. There's more to it than just the money. And because he is, because the government under him is very much treating it like a business, they are not quite realizing the geopolitical implications that are happening. I mean, it's like, since when would you ever, for example, see a US government buy a bond in Intel at 10%? Never see that sort of thing. But now he's starting to go with tariffs. He's starting to, some would even say he's acting very much like a socialist in putting all these tariffs in, protectionism.
Yeah.
It's not how the tariffs have always been done. Never.
Going back to
exactly. It's different now because he's a different cat.
Yeah. But going back to
Alex's whole globalist thing now. Now you got a different way of looking at things.
But all that will happen, I'm sorry, Jim, I fundamentally disagree. Because you've already seen it happening in Southeast Asia, for instance. They're forming trading partnership blocks to exclude America. People aren't looking at how do we circumnavigate the American tariffs. They're looking at where else can we get the same stuff from. And I don't think at the moment America makes anything exclusively. You can't really get somewhere else. Global trade has been one of the great benefits. The best thing to come out of World War II, which was basically done by America, was the new order of global trade. And it almost seems like Brexit was extremely self-destructive for the UK in terms of economics. Unfortunately, it seems Trump is resetting a lot of the global economics for America. And it has impacts elsewhere, but we're not going to feel it like America is. So again, it just seems very self-harming.
He's the president of the United States of America. He's not president of Britain or Canada or Vietnam or Cambodia or Nepal.
Yeah, but most global, most presidents, prime ministers, emperors, whoever,
globalism's out.
Yeah, I see my I want to go back to Alex's point was that to bring in the tariffs after you've already got the infrastructure to make things, valid point, because even now the reason why, say for instance, the big companies like Apple and all that go to China, even Airfix and Revell all go to China, is because they have the top tool makers in that country. There's nothing they can't tool. So like your Airfix kit will be the tooling will be done in China, and from that point they then move it to India. What America should be doing is bringing back in the education and building up those companies to create these items to sell and to trade with, and then maybe brought in these tariffs, etc.
But you can't make the move and then say, okay, now we need to build it up. You have to create a need, and you have that's the point. Let's create a need.
Okay, so there is a YouTuber. There's a YouTuber called Smarter Every Day. He's an American guy. He's kind of our age, and he wanted to make something purely in America, made in America, a barbecue scraper, because barbecue scrapers suck in a lot of ways. It's a very American thing, right? So he set out, he got this design, this great design, which was like a chainmail kind of thing. So you don't get like little bits of wire in your throat, because people do die from that. It cleans efficiently. It's got all this stuff. He found it. He's got a couple of videos. It's worth watching. Because he was talking about this and how basically over the last 30 years, and this isn't globalism, this is just greed, has gutted the manufacturing industry in America. I mean, just look at Detroit, for instance. But he tried to make this barbecue scraper wholly with American-made stuff and die presses and all the stuff. You know, it's not that difficult, you know, a barbecue scraper. And he eventually succeeded, only to find out that some of the components actually came from China. So he had to go back. Do you know how much that barbecue scraper is?
No idea.
$70.
Yeah.
Whereas you go down to Home Depot, you could buy a barbecue scraper for like $2.99 or something.
So that's the issue.
It's a noble idea. But how many US consumers are going to spend $70 on a barbecue scraper, even if it's the best scraper in the world? You know, and I wish you more.
If they don't have the Buck 298 scraper from China, then they have the alternative of buying the $70 scraper or cleaning it manually themselves. At some point in time, America has to wake up and not be dependent on the $2.98.
But hang on, Jim. You're now arguing against the free market deciding. You said earlier the free market decides. The free market has decided it wants the $1. It wants the $1 from China, not the $70 from the US. So you can't have it. As Americans, you can't have it both ways.
It is the market deciding when we say we're not going to import the Buck 298 scraper.
No, it's not though. It's the government. It's not. It's not the market. It's the government saying we're not going to, which is very un-American.
To bring it back home, we don't need to be dependent on everybody. That is
the political stance.
Sound bad. Because that's the way you guys want to spin this. But we can take care of ourselves. It doesn't matter. We don't need anybody else. Okay? And now, we don't. We've got every freaking natural resource. We've got oil, we've got land.
I think if we bring it back to sort of kits, I think if we bring it back to sort of plastic kits. But I think if we take it sort of
titanium.
But I think if we take it more back to plastic kits, though, for example, is that with the kits, look how many American manufacturers there were in the early stages compared to now. There is less because the free market has decided, right, I want stuff from Japan, etc. The honest truth is sort of like with model manufacturing, certainly, if we use that as an example, because it's the least politically contentious, is that the Americans have not kept up with the quality and the tooling and the costing that Japan can produce or Eastern Europe can produce, hence their market has shrunk. If you were to bring in very good quality moldings, manufacturing back to the US, then, for example, you could then build on that base and maybe then you would grow your market share. But the thing is with the tariffs, you're only going to cut yourselves off, and certainly from a modeling point.
The need to bring it back home so we can have the model manufacturer go and okay. Classic example. There's a couple guys here that do 3D printing, right? And they were at the Nets and they were doing good business, because guess what? That might be our only chance to buy accessories for our models now, because guess what? We can do that too. We don't have to be relying on ResKit or Edward or anybody else. It's the same thing with any other commodity. We need to bring it back home, so we're not reliant on globalism, you know, where we're getting raped over tariffs or over trade imbalances because we're buying everything because it's cheaper. It's the same thing with illegal immigration. And this is the way it goes. Why is one party so willing to let illegals come in? Because it's cheap labor, and businesses are going, hey, I want all kinds of cheap labor. Okay, so they come in and they live off the federal government getting free housing, free healthcare, free food, while they go stand in line at the grocery store a half mile or less from my house, sending money back home because we're paying them to live here for free.
I think we were straight into political territory.
Yeah, I think it was Greg.
It's all interlinked. It's all
interlinked. I understand all that, and that's. But as I was trying to get back to the actual the meat on the bone, was that when these things come about, at the end of the day, it's the consumer that basically has to
make a choice.
Follow, and they will have to make the choice. But we will,
hence the free market.
We will, as I said, we've already been through it with the tariffs and the taxes, and I have seen things have, what can I say, increased in price because of what's happened. You know, I'm pretty sure that Revell kits now are that little bit more expensive because of we came out of a free trade agreement with Europe, and then they all got put back in. So I
think as much I think, and I agree with you, keeping it on the modeling side, I think with Brexit that kits have gone up in cost because of Brexit, because of the extra custom charges, and that's a statement of fact. That's not a political point for us in Britain. That you can directly correlate that choice with, because of the essential tariffs or taxes, additional taxes have been put on because we're no longer in a free trade agreement. That is the reality of it. You can't deny that. But that's just a lesson that we have learned on this side of the pond from when we have done these things where we have effectively added tariffs ourselves. Things have gone up. Have we seen let's say, an increase in model manufacturing in the UK, for example? No, not really. There was a brief blip, sort of, you could say, with sort of the guys in New Haven, which were very famous because of it. But we are not, when it comes to overall, what was the impact of tariffs and taxes? The cost went up. That's, I think, the end game of it all. The cost goes up and it will be passed on. And it's yet to be seen if it does actually create economic growth, one at home, and actually does it lower the cost of model kits overall? Because I would argue, if you looked at it from an economic point of view, who tend to, apart from the Chinese, will take them out as an outlier because of, you could argue, subsidies and stuff. But in a free market economy, who is able to produce most of the very cheap kits? Generally the Eastern Europeans, and they're of good quality. So you can see that actually in a free market, that actually does generate competition proper. And okay, it's an internal one, but I think it's just interesting.
As I said, I just brought the subject up. There's been lots of comments on here on the chat and everything. Yeah, we're trying to get into the politics of it all. We understand that. We were just talking about what this situation would be for modelling in these realms. And as I said, at the end of the day, when it comes to tariffs and taxes and the cost of that, it does end up back on the consumer. most definitely. And that was where, and also that when we see that that companies are worried about sending stuff to the United States of America because the implementation, people are worried about what's going to happen when it gets there. There's no workaround as yet on how they're going to take the monetary value from that product and pass it on to the consumer, and that's why they've stopped shipping to America at the moment. But as I said, we've had it here in the United Kingdom, whereas there are companies that won't ship to England now. Bell is one. It looks like Heller have changed the game. I think Edard stopped it for a while. There was quite a few that wouldn't. And if I wanted kits from Revell, I'd have to wait for them to come into the local model shop and order it from them, if you know what I mean. So
it's to do with the uncertainty is what it was with Brexit. And that since that has now we have we've got a more clear arrangement of what does Brexit look like, what does our trading relationship look like with the EU. It has improved. And it has got things easier. It's still a barrier, but it's easier. And I think for the Americans, it would be very much the same. Of once the uncertainty starts to go away and there's a bit more certainty of direction, then I think the modeling world will be able to settle down. Prices will overall be higher still, but there won't be so much price fluctuation or worry. I think that's the main thing. And it's just it's going to be one of those things that, again, yes, it is politics at the end of the day, but that's the real decisions that come by it. But again, it's just you've got to live with it. And I think if the US government, in this case, they become a bit more predictable, I don't think there will be a problem. No,
I kind of get that. And also, if we had, I was wondering how Airfix, with the agreements and stuff that we do have now with Europe, there was a time when I was thinking if we left Europe, things like with the Airfix kits, they're all Cartograph decals in the box, aren't they? And they're an Italian company, so the price of those decals would have gone up.
Yeah,
just an example, but I don't think it was as bad as I originally thought. I think we kind of found our way through that. Whether it's because those decal sheets got sent direct to India to be put in the box with the instruction sheets, I don't know. But
there's many ways you can skin a cat on that one when it comes to businesses. You can send it direct to India to be packaged, and then in theory the final, because there's a rule within the EU where if there's a substantial alteration, wherever the final substantial alteration is done, that is where it can be claimed as being made from, and that's where any tariffs would apply. Because, for example, in Italy, a lot of the high fashion handbags, a lot of them produced in the Far East, but the final alteration is done in Italy. Therefore, it's classed as made in Italy, and the same can be done to get round tariffs. That's what I was saying earlier of why if they were made by American companies, i.e. the final substantial alteration is done in America, would they in theory be able to get around the tariffs? And that's, another way around that argument you can get through.
But they've had to have got it into that country as well. I think it was Bosch. They were buying parts from China, and then they were getting those parts shipped to the UK, to Germany, and then they would put a label on it, or they would repackage it and just stick a label on that.
It is exactly that. The EU legislation is the last substantial alteration. So, for example, for bags, that would be putting on the zipper, or if it was on a Bosch tool, that would be doing the final fitment of the electronics, let's say.
Yeah.
That then classes it's made in Germany or made in Italy. That is the rule, and that's how you get around it.
Even painting it a different color would make it into
Yeah, and that's exactly, those are the clever workarounds that a lot of companies are now working with, because as you say, it's a capitalist market. They'll want to still keep their margin.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
This is just the reality, I'm afraid.
This was the point I was getting to from when I was thinking about, because I knew that it would be a touchy subject, and I know people in the chat have kind of switched off, and I know, but I hope you come back. But it was just the fact that my view on it is that there's who will take on the cost of this? And unfortunately, and it is in this country as well. It's taken on by the consumer, and as you said, people will vote for their feet at the end of it.
And it's true, but I think it's the reality. People, sorry, you may not like it, but that's the reality that this, in the very small sense, and I think because modelling is generally, it's not a very political subject. It's actually quite a good example to show when governments make decision, this is a consequence that doesn't affect you massively, but it's a good example of, in a microcosm, of what happens when you vote or try to do things.
Yeah.
So it's just a good study sample. That's all. Doesn't need to be political, but it's just a good study sample.
Which is what I was trying to get to. As I said, just because it was such current on all the Facebook groups and in the chat, mostly from the America, and the companies this side of the pond saying we're not going to be shipping to America now until this gets some sort of address, I should say. I thought we should raise it up, but you can go down so many holes with it as well. But I was trying to keep to the scale modeling side of it.
Yeah, and just to say, I don't think the Europeans and all the other companies who have now stopped sending have a problem with the tariffs. That's fine. I think what they have an issue with is the burden of the US government putting it on them to collect the taxes, or a middleman in between, and that is not clear. I think, for example, if there was a way of the US government would deal with it once it landed, sort of similar to our system, I think then all manufacturers be happy to continue pushing the product in because it's there. It's the fact that you're putting a cost and it's not clear.
Well, the thing is, it's just like, that is, I mean, you're trying to change the rules in somebody else's country. No company, I don't care where they are, is going to accept that. Would a US company accept that from a foreign importer? Absolutely not. So why would we? Why would China? Why would India? Why would anybody? Except it's like, oh, you have to collect. Fuck off! Collect your own taxes. You collect them. We shipping them. This is our cost. That's the shipping cost. When it hits your shores, you do what you like with them. But you can't tell us what to do. So I think it goes beyond that. Idea of taking things back. It's just like, politically, you could say, oh, we're going to make people pay, but you can't actually make people pay. You can impose tariffs, which means your own people will pay more for things, but you can't make the world pay. It's just nonsense.
It is a difficult one.
But that's not what he's trying to do, and that's my point. It's not about you guys. It's about us fixing our issue here at home by bringing it all back home.
But Jim, so Smarter Every Day, I put it in the comments, try to get one of the pieces that he had in his barbecue scrubber was injection molded. So he tried to get that injection molded in the US, and he found in the end, he found one injection molding company, which was down to one guy who actually died, I believe, during the filming of the video, who had the company for like ages. He lives, I can't remember where he lives, but he was trained as an engineer. He grew up with engineers. His family were in STEM. And he says the industry's been gutted. To bring that back is noble, but who's going to start up an injection molding company in the US?
If you create a big enough need, the need will be fulfilled, as with any.
Who's going to do it though, Jim? It's going to cost millions to do that. An injection molding machine is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Other countries.
Do you know, of the top 10 injection molding machines, one is US based?
Yes, because we've outsourced everything to our detriment. That's the point.
You're not going to be able to rebuild that in.
No, you're right. We're not. But we have.
We don't have a coal industry, but nobody's looking at bringing that back.
Alex, you got to start somewhere. Okay, and if we never take that first step, we're never going to have anything make it again. And we're going to be dependent on China for everything.
One of the most enviable trading positions in the world. It's not like you were doing bad. Your economy was doing fine. Why do you need to do everything yourselves?
Because
what is so bad about globalism?
Here, so we're not dependent. It's America first.
It's just nonsense.
I will.
But I honestly don't care about anybody else but America at this point. You got and you shouldn't care about anybody else but Britain at this point.
I think that is such a backwards-looking ideology.
Well, I think it's
honestly.
a very forward-thinking argument. When you take care of
Not.
yourselves and you're self-responsible for yourselves first and foremost, not all this globalist kumbaya stuff.
And then that's what gets the wars.
Just saying.
I've often asked the question to Airfix, why don't they manufacture kits in the United Kingdom? And it's not because we don't have companies that can do plastic moldings. We do. We have a few. But the problem is scale. That's the issue. They use one company to do the Airfix Spitfire. And if you go to that company, they were creating and shipping the 124th Spitfire by the pallet, because that's all the space they had to store these kits. Whereas in India, where they manufacture and also store all the tools in Airfix's catalog, there's no company big enough that would be able to house or demand the Airfix need on that. To create something would just cost, hundreds of millions just to buy the factory, the space, the place to store these toolings, to man them up, But because there's a company in India that has all that set up and the workforce, I granted, we do have issues with QC. That's by and by, and and I've said that with Poland, that might have been the option, but Revell over the last 30 years, and I'm talking 30 odd years here, have developed a relationship and built that factory in Poland to create all those kits. The same with Tamiya. There's 30 years or 40 years or 50 years of, and I know they moved to the Philippines, but that wasn't done overnight. That was like a 10-15 year project, if I remember rightly, that they built the 10-year project, that they built the factory, and then over time they moved the tooling across when they had the capacity to do as many kits as that. And also, I don't think Tamiya have as many releases, whether it's new tooling or re-releases like Airfix do, or reboxings and new schemes, as Tamiya does. I think Airfix are one of the biggest ones. I think they release about 60 different tools a year, whether it's a brand new tool or a new box art. So you can understand that it's not going to change overnight. Maybe my view on it is, I do agree, look after your home, but there's got to be, it's not something that's going to change overnight. It's got to be done at an implementable, and it's up for the government to invest in those companies to take up that slack. And then when they have the excesses of that nation, that's what they trade with. They look after. This is the problem with. There's one thing that UK do wrong, is that we don't grab that gas from the North Sea, get it to us, and then ship it abroad. What we tend to do is sell it abroad, then we buy it back at an astronomical rate. So we have our own issues in this country. So, but hopefully that will change in the future when we're opening up these new gas fields. But it would actually come to us first before it gets shipped abroad, and then we buy the fucking stuff back. I don't know. That's how I see the idea.
I think the reality of the situation is, unless you have in the world today, unless you have a Soviet-style economic system which is closed, and you don't trade with anybody else, you're never going to be able to, unless you are competitively on the edge for cost, because cost is what drives everything. You can't compete. You have to find other ways to compete, and at the minute, I don't think the American economy has that. And I think, as you say, if we look at it from a modelling perspective and purely that, where the advantages, if we take Airfix and Revell, for example, Airfix produced in India, like you say, Revell produced in Poland. The economic advantage for Airfix is India is no doubt cheaper, and it's probably cheaper to produce overall. However, then you have the offset of quality control. If you look at Revell, they have an initial higher cost of moving the tooling and testing over to Poland to manufacture, but then their transportation costs will be lower, and their quality control generally is better because of the skilled labor would be comparison in Poland. So this is all to do with economics at the end of the day. Yeah, unless, and again, sort of, I think there was a comment in there about whereby sort of there's tariffs on the other side, i.e. I think the Americans selling into the EU, for example. The problem is that this is all to do with economic power of who wants to trade in what block. If there was a complete free trade, that would be a completely liberal market whereby there would be no barriers, and then that is literally down to whoever is the most efficient. By theory, they would make the best goods and they'd be the cheapest goods. But because the world is not like that, governments can subsidize, because it's what happens in China, for example, whereby that's why Chinese production can be considerably cheaper. You either have to play that game or you have to find an efficiency around it. And I think the problem, and again, I'll keep it in the modeling lens with American manufacturers, is that they're not as, how could I put it? They've got themselves into such a position where they're economically not as competitive, and they're not as creative as they once were in enterprising on an international market. They are internally, but not externally. And I think
there's also one thing that, I mean, you say, economics is the heart of it. And again, I'm thinking of a modeling point of view. It's not the only thing with modeling. So I think if you did a survey of what are the most sold manufacturers in the US model hobby, Tamiya is probably right up there at the top, right? And that's not because they're the cheapest kits, it's because they're the best quality kits. The same with the Chinese stuff. Chinese stuff is, generally cheaper, but it's also very high quality. If you think of traditional, the traditional American manufacturers that you can get today, which are like, the stuff like AMT and stuff through, I forget the company. Is it Round 2 that does those?
Round 2, I think, yeah.
Round 2, yeah.
The quality isn't there. A lot of the reason you build those is because of nostalgia. It's like the old Airfix vintage classic kits, right? It's because they did subjects which nobody else did, or you built it as a kid and you want to rebuild it, right? Nobody's building an AMT Mustang because it's the best kit available. So there is the quality piece in as well, and that takes time, right? Again, if you look at the likes of ICM, right, an Eastern European manufacturer based in Ukraine, they started up in the late 90s. If you go to some of their late 90s, early 2000 kits, some of them are horrible, right? Because it took them time to be able to get up to speed, to learn CAD, the new technologies that came in. But they were a young company, and they could buy all those technologies and gradually establish them, build the factory, get more stuff in. It's taken them years to build that up, and now they're producing excellent quality kits. That's taken, 15 years, I would say. If you go back 15 years, it's probably from when the first of their kits was really notably good. So, again, 15 years isn't, and that's probably quite quick, right, to get to that level because of new technology, because of CAD and CNC.
But exactly what you're saying about Round 2. Those tooling have made their money already. They've not invested. That tooling's already made their money. The money's in selling older stuff and bringing in and designing and getting new tools in, which ultimately will come from China because they make the best tools. And it's no disrespect or nothing, but when unless you employ those people from China and bring them over to do that tooling, that's another argument in itself. But then it's but then but if we're taking the best from those countries, we're then keeping them down because we're taking the talent for ourselves and leaving them with no talent. It's an awful mess. I don't understand all of it, but I've listened to the argument, I've seen the arguments, but just trying to, the idea was to keep this within the scale modeling, really. But yeah, we there's definitely things that will iron itself out in the future for sure.
Yeah, I think for just one thing on scale modeling, if we're purely talking about that and American brands, they need to sort of have an ICM style revival whereby they need money and cash injected into them, and it's not the American system or way to get that capital from the government. That will come from investors, and this is where I think it ties in. How are you going to get investors when, one, your economy is not necessarily stable, not through the economy being strong, but through external forces, we'll call it, and is it going to be an export economy whereby these products are going to be exported, or are they going to be, like Jim said, they're going to be an internal economy only? And I think that's what's going to struggle from a modeling perspective to actually turn these companies around. The investors are not clear what the direction is of your economic policy of, are you looking to export, or are you simply looking to bring manufacturing home and produce in the States, and that's it? Because again,
why would anybody
that's creeping to a Soviet style.
Why would anybody want to invest in a modeling company in the United States? It's, again, the United States is such a small percentage of any modeling market on the planet. Why? We can't get a 2-seat F-16 out of Tamiya because Mr. Tamiya says no, okay? Because he caters to his market, okay? We don't have a market here. We have AMT, who makes 60-year-old repops of kits, and that's it. Monogram's gone, Rebel's gone, because the market dictates here that there's not a strong enough market here to support 1-2 model companies. Okay, you have a market in the UK that will support Airfix. Great, that's fine. But we're doing just fine without Monogram and Rebel on the big picture. We don't need Rebel or Monogram. We don't.
But say there, like you said, you can't support. You can't currently,
because what we do now is old man stuff that's gone.
But like you're saying, Jim, the market can't currently support a US manufacturer that's, we'll call it, revitalized. Do you believe then that these tariffs in effect will create the conditions whereby it can?
Here, specifically in the States, no, I don't. Because the market's not there. We are so tiny compared to, per ratio. And again, we'll bring up the Telford comparison to our nationals. Okay, you probably have more people and more modelers per capita than we do here. We might get, I don't know, what, 3, 4, 5,000 people through the course of a 4-day national. You probably get that on day one, if not more. Okay, you have the population of California at 65 million, and we've got 330 million here. Okay, and the modeling industry is much more prolific in Britain than it is here. Okay, it's not a thing here. So no, I don't think any modeling company will survive here.
Okay, so my question is then. So my question is when it comes to modeling, and so this exemption that is brought the tariffs on, do you believe that policy should be revoked because it's not going to create the conditions to actually create a sustainable company, and in fact will just be detrimental because it will cause price increases? So do you believe that therefore this, I think it's up to $800, the exemption should go back, and therefore other tariffs and whatever the government wishes to do are fine, but for this particular modeling one, which is being affected where it's up to $800, do you think they should take that stop? Why should the rollout on the 29th?
No, why should we be exempt? Just because it's hard to get? Well, there's a lot of stuff hard to get. Oh well, so sorry, so sad. You know,
But I'm just trying to see if there's no good going to come out of it.
No, nothing good's going to come out of it, because modeling is on its way to death anyway. And you get so many of the young kids here in their 30s and 40s, you know, that are trying to keep it alive by different means, but it's not going there. The numbers just aren't there. 15 years from now, I'll be surprised if there is an IPMS USA National. It's just people are dying off and nobody's replacing them. This is an old man's hobby, like it or not.
Okay? In America it is, I guess, but not in
absolutely it is. You don't have enough new coming in, okay? Because and it's been this way since the 90s. oh my God, how do we get the kids into the hobby? Oh, Nintendo is going to kill it. And guess what? It has. But nobody wants to hear that. No, we'll make them build Gundams because they do it in Japan. Well, Japan's a whole different culture than it is in the U.S. Of course, the model building's big in Japan. Of course, it's successful there. And we benefit what little bit we benefit from it, but the trickle down. Okay? There's not enough here in the States to have an Airfix because the passion's just not there. You guys live and die. Oh my God, Airfix, the next Airfix release. Monogram would come out with something you may or may not know about it. What did they? We don't get as wrapped up in anything over here unless it's the next Call of Duty game or the next Airstrike 2000 or whatever the video game is. Okay, and that's what I'm saying. Per capita, there's more old guys in Britain than there are over here that are part of the hobby. Okay,
it's really sad to hear that.
I fundamentally disagree with everything you just said, Jim.
So I'm just going to quickly ask.
Modeling is not dying. It is, and this was actually a really good comment with from one of my channels.
Has a lifespan.
But okay,
You're
then.
wrong.
So let me just let me ask
just a moment, Ben. So the modeling industry is not dying; it is changing. Now, a lot of us, I include myself in that, but let's say the different generations of modeling. The first generation don't see, I think, are very blinkered and only look at what they model. They don't consider anything else as kind of in that sphere. Because if you consider Bolt Action, Games Workshop, I mean, you mentioned Gundam as well, not a huge thing in the States, but like D&D, like miniatures, all that kind of stuff, it's huge in the US. Look at Gen Con, look at Adepticon. They grow every single year with tens of thousands of attendees.
In the truest sense, that's what I'm saying. Games Workshop it's a game. You're making pieces for a game. 99% of those guys are
matter
to play a game. It's not about modeling, it's about the game.
I don't think we get to gatekeep what is modeling and what is not.
I'm not gatekeeping, and don't throw the term gatekeeping out there. It is what it is. These are facts. Modeling is modeling. It's gaming. There is some crossover. But you say, when I say
one of the reasons is okay. So the comment that came from one of my channel members was, because I had a lot of this, right? A lot of people say, oh, a lot of old farts saying it's dying. And a young modeler, a 19-year-old, say, because they said you never see young people at model shows, and he basically said, yeah, why the hell would we? Why would we engage with a bunch of old farts who only want to talk about their own stuff and aren't welcoming us? And it's like, that's a really fair point.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's a bogus argument. Because guess what? Wait a minute. This old man was a young guy at one time, and I forced my way in there, and I acquiesced to those old guys. I put value in what the old guys had to say, and I tried to carry on.
But they still have their communities, Jim. It's not physical. They're doing it through Discord. They're doing it through TikTok. They're doing it through Twitch. They're doing it through YouTube.
Exactly.
It's just different.
And it's all about them.
It's still modeling. You're just not seeing it because they're not.
I'm gonna jump in here. The arguments you're having, Jim, I thought, and about the youth, I totally get on board with that the kids aren't doing scale modeling. But I'll tell you what, though, when they're in their 20s and their 30s, that's when they start doing scale modeling now. Like a lot of the, and because it's available. So, for instance, if you actually talk, I reckon 1 in 4 of the scale modelers in this country have been in the forces, and they're building stuff that they have either used, been, over there. And then but then you've got the other side of it where it's or they've got like or my father flew this, or my father drove this. Not that they were in the forces themselves. And I think the quiet revival that I've seen with modeling is the fact that the 30 to 40, 50-year-olds, whereas they haven't got the responsibilities of the child anymore. They've already moved out, got their own house. They've got a spare room in their bed. You've got a spare bedroom that they can work in. They've got extra money because they're not having to pay out for their child because they've now moved on. So you've got these middle-aged men looking for a hobby. And what really ticks the boxes for a lot of these middle-aged men is scale modeling. And that's what I'm seeing in this country. And these are reports I've been seeing in the likes of Germany as well and other places. Why do you think, Tamiya are doing always, bring out a military or bringing out a car, a supercar or something? Because they know that the middle-aged men may not be able to afford to ever buy that supercar. They've got the opportunity to build it reasonably well because of how the tooling has been made. Now, I understand that old tooling would put a lot of kids off, etc. But even Airfix have got the gumph of bringing out 16 starter sets with at least 8 of them being supercars or vintage cars, and the others being the Messerschmitt, the Spitfire, the Lightning, the Lifeboat, the tanks, the German, the Spitfire, the Sherman, and the Tiger One. You can tell they are not aimed specifically for children. They're aimed at middle-aged men who fancy having a go at building a scale model in a subject they relate to, even if they have never driven one. They may want to drive one. So I can see how it's the Middle Ages that actually bring into the hobby. And it goes the same with knitting. My partner here, she never did cross stitch as a child, but she's gone and got herself a cross stitch, and now she enjoys doing cross stitch, and she's in her 40s. Sorry, love, I didn't mean to put you in, but you know what I mean. So there's that as well. Now that's how I'm seeing it. I think hobbies, even though back in the day kids were doing them, I think more now that a hobby is something you take up in the Middle Ages, your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and we need to get these people before they get sucked into playing golf or fishing, which is nothing. It's mind shit, That's how I see it. So, but that's how I see it in this country, and I think that if America had the same resources as this we have here, you will see scale modeling increase fourfold minimum. And I know Alex agrees with me because I think we talked about this before in one of your shows. That's where the money's at. And Airfix are doing it now with the Stalwart, the Ferret Scout. Those people in the Middle Ages, in the mid 40s or 50s, probably had them when they were serving. And that's where the money's at. That's what I think anyway. Go on then, Ben. Sorry, you can jump in.
I was saying, as the youngest person, I agree with that. I just want to quickly go back to the tariff thing because I didn't get an answer from Jin. So just where you were talking about, you don't think it will create the environment to create a sustainable company. Just to wrap the tariff thing up, do you therefore think the tariffs are just going to be detrimental overall to the hobby because it will just increase the cost and there will be no upside to it?
Again, there's no market there. There just simply is that if we had, well, again, my point, if we had enough people here, we would have a monogram here. We'd have Rebel here. They left 35 plus years ago and nobody's replaced them. The only company doing it's AMT popping out 60-year-old molds. The market's not there here in the States. That's why I say, and I can only speak to the States. Yeah. I've been to Telford once. It's thoroughly amazing. I'm happy for you guys. Maybe you can make it go. It's not going to happen here. The market's not here.
So that's fine. So
else.
So the tariffs for modeling in particular are only going to be detrimental. They're not going to help.
It's not about the tariffs. It's about the market. There's not enough people here that care about tariffs on modeling things. It doesn't matter. That's the point.
Okay.
It could be crocheting or whatever old hobby you want to put out there. The market isn't there. There's not enough kids into it anymore to keep it going. So it's the old guys willing to pay the tariffs because the new kids aren't coming in. They're not engaged by it.
And that was going to come to my second point as the youngest person, because I'm mid-20s. I'm nearly 25. For me, I have several American friends who don't do scale modeling, but a bit like Alex is they do other forms of modeling, or they do automotive, for example. It's the one I found where it's the biggest. So for you in the States, do you see then the hobby of that in the scale modeling sense? That element is either not sustaining or shrinking, or is there some form that, say, like Moz was saying, where they come back in their 40s or 50s, let's say, or post-service, that side of the hobby will sustain itself?
No. We've got a brand new car manufacturer over here, Paul Savino. I think he's put out like 3 Indy cars. They're $75, $80, if not more, and they're just a basic car kit. Okay, you don't get that much to them. Okay, who's building them? Well, I saw like 2 or 3 at the National, and it was old guys. Okay. The point being, Amaz says, you know, that Airfix is putting out a Sherman for the middle-aged modeler getting back into it. And I would say and counter, or are they catering to their market they already have? They're putting out what they know will sell, that the modelers will support. I would bet that's their end game, because they know they're going to make money on the next 24 scale Spitfire, because there's enough market there, and the market is the old guys. It's not the young guys, especially over here, to support. You can tariff it all you want. It's not going to support, and that the tariff has really nothing to do with it. You could have 0 tariffs, and this thing is going to die because kids today aren't interested. They just, there's a few, but not enough to keep the ball going, especially here in a domestic market. And that's has there been another model manufacturer popped up in the 35 years since Rebel or Monogram have gone? No, because there's no market.
Okay, right, that's fine. I just got to 2 points on that, right? If I'm just going to go back to Miss Modeler, if anything, it isn't just middle-aged men. No, my point is that generally it's middle-aged men, or that there's got the income that's saved, has got the spare room in the house, that looking for a hobby will bring in. Of course, the hobby's for everyone. I'm not disputing that. You could say cross stitch is a hobby for everyone, but you're not going to get many middle-aged men doing cross stitch, are you? Majority will be men who want to build things with their hands. Okay, right? You know, that was where I was coming from on that point of view. All right, so yeah, don't get me wrong. I think modeling is for everyone, but I was just using a fact of that most of the people that contact me on my channel are in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, that are either they did a little bit of modeling when they were a kid, or they've just got into it. They've built this car. What glue should they use, or what paints? And you know, asking me questions about airbrushing and stuff. That's what I was getting at. Now, Airfix releasing. You're saying about the Sherman, the starter sets. No, I don't think Airfix released them because of the demographic. I think they released what they did because they know they will be a draw. If you're a 40-year-old man, you would have been brought up watching the Dam Busters, or you would have been watching the Battle of Britain in this country. Even so much as you would have watched films about, you know, Fury, you know, all those tank films, etc. So that market for the Sherman tank and for the Tiger One, even in Band of Brothers, etc., that you would have been brought up watching that sort of stuff. So if you were going to get into scale modeling, what better off would be a Spitfire, the tank, and whatnot. But also, they also aimed for those middle-aged men who, I'm saying this middle-aged men, but I'm just saying as a general, that the sports cars, you know, Top Gear was born out of us men loving our toys. Okay, that's simples. Now, you saw Jeremy Clarkson and Richard Hammond drive these supercars, the Huracan, the McLaren, the Bugatti Veyron. You saw them boys. So what are you going to do? Oh, I remember James May was slow in this one. I might build that one, something to do. And that's the market. You know, it's things that they have seen and they've got the opportunity of building it. That's how I see it.
Can I give you a bit of Gemba evidence here, Moss? Those of you who haven't done the Toyota way, Gemba evidence is you go to where the work is, right? So you go to where things are being sold. So I can only give a very small sample size, but it is at least real. So it's been the summer holidays over the last 3 weeks in the UK, which is traditionally a quiet period for shops because people go away on holiday and stuff. I've actually been relatively busy in the shop. And the majority, I'd say it's about 50-50. 50 is like regulars and like people popping in, specifically modelers. The other half have been people on holiday. Inevitably, they're coming in with children, usually younger children, I'd say 12 or under. And I've sold quite a lot of models to those people for their children. I think one of the main, and do you know what they choose? I would say the main difference between this and the 60s and 70s is that it's presented to both the girls and the boys equally. I've sold as many kits to like girls as I have to boys, with their parents. But do you know what they choose? World War II fighter aircraft.
Yeah.
Spitfires, 109s. I sold one DB5. That was to their dad.
Yeah.
Because he saw it in James Bond. So it's just... I think the idea that Spitfires and 109s and stuff are dead because there's no sort of direct link, like so no grandfathers alive that fought those stuff is a little bit of a red herring, but yeah, I would say that's the biggest change that I've noticed is that when a parent comes in and said, "Would you like to try this?" it's to the girls and the boys. It's not just because. Usually it would have been, when I was a kid, it was my dad took me. He didn't take me and my sister to go to the model shop or to the museum.
But even for me, which, I started going in, 2005, so that's 20 years ago now. When I was a kid, it was still very much the same. It wasn't sort of till I was sort of 14, 15 that it, as you say, was becoming more neutral. Girls were doing it, etc. It's still a very much a boys thing to do. But like I went back.
So the other models are dinosaurs. Tamiya's dinosaurs always sell well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I went back on Friday just gone to where I used to work at Sussex Model Centre and sort of said to them, "Oh, how's it been over the summer per se?" And they said, surprisingly, it's been a little bit quiet on the RC plane side, but the cars and surprisingly the plastic kits have been really busy. And they said, considering the weather has been really good, it's a lot of outdoors and that, they didn't expect that. And talking to them, they think it's a combination of current economic circumstance, money's a bit tighter, but also there's a little bit of we want to get the kids off the IT. We want to get kids doing stuff a bit physical. And she also said, and they sort of said schools, for example, are doing more projects where again it was something physical. And like you say, there's a good mix of boys and girls doing it. And what they're also seeing is a lot of college students, because there's a couple of colleges around the shop, sort of within 5 or 6 miles, and a lot of college students are doing it. And again, it's boys and girls, and it's being seen as a hobby overall. And the fact that you can go make something and it's tangible, people actually see that as a skill and a talent, and so people are quite drawn to that as a hobby now.
And I think the Games Workshop thing as well, because I've had, since doing Games Workshop stuff, obviously I have people coming in for Games Workshop stuff, but I've had people come in for Games Workshop stuff and leave with tanks. Yeah. So they come in and they see both and are just like, you know what? I've actually heard them because I just sit at the back and I don't bother them unless they, want help and stuff. I heard people say, you know what? I just fancy, I fancy doing something like real, rather than a, Blood Angels Army or whatever. So I think there is a future, even if it's only a few percent, crossover of spilling from these other ancillary hobbies.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, action stuff is direct because it is World War II.
I mean, that's a similar story to me, though. I had a friend. We both got into modelling at the same time, but he went down the Warhammer route. I went down the Airfix and the military route. But I'm still doing it. He isn't. And one of his things for why not doing it was sort of once he built his armies and did his things, and bizarrely enough, this sort of goes into sort of teenage culture and universities. his hobby was deemed uncool because it was fantasy and whatever, whereas mine, people didn't really care. It was like, oh, you're building something that's real. Oh, that's nice. But then he's now coming back into it. But like you say, Alex, he's now dipping his toes in both. He's not dipping it in one or the other. But I think it was also a cost implication. Warhammer's always been more expensive. You know, if you look at plastic for what you get in the box, £10 a Warhammer, you're going to get probably one figure, maybe two if you're lucky. Whereas you'll get an Airfix starter kit that will build really nicely, you know, and be a fairly substantial size. So I think that plays a part of it as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, actually, one of the things Ross, I think that Airfix should bring back, and I say this almost every time I'm on Airfix and Chill, bring back the birds. Bring back the dinosaurs. I've been doing these Airfix robins, and I think they're great. I think things like that would broaden that kind of.
Ask yeah. If they've got the tooling, like I said, I've just done my latest video.
Well, redo them because they're pretty difficult to make.
Well, they wouldn't. I don't think they'll do it on CAD. They'll probably get like some person to mold them and out of clay, and then do it from there. But I've just recently done a video. It's going out tomorrow, actually, before I do my private members live stream. The 2005 Airfix official catalogue. This is the year before they went bang. Well, they went bang in this year. And if you actually look at some of the stuff they were putting out in this range, you would think to yourself, "Cool, if they brought that back, they brought that back." But then you wonder, you know, with the messiness of the divorce, what tools did they actually get back from Hella? You know,
not the Jaguar.
Not the Jaguar. What about the Queen Mary? Who's got that tool in? That's they released it in 2004 as Airfix, then 2005 as Hella, and it's not been seen since. But that is an official Airfix kit. But yeah, they didn't have the birds in here, but they did release them back in the 90s, I believe. The birds and whatnot. So the tooling might be in Hella's warehouse in France.
Plus, we should organise a trip to Trun and see if we can dig one out.
Yeah, you know. My granddaughter regularly comes and looks through my stash. So far, she has built an airbrush, the Warhawk, a Tiger One, and is currently building Kugelwagen. She is 10 and airbrushes better than I do.
A Kugelwagen would be a great kit for any, you know.
Yeah. I'm not dissing or saying that girls. I was just saying predominantly what the people that contact me, the people I see at model shows are, I think 10% would be children and the rest are adults. More, not teenagers, but there are a few, but more in that 30+ market. And yeah, it's but then when you talk about wargaming and stuff, that to me is a different. I don't. It's like, dare I say it? It's like an artist. You've got artists that use oils. You've got artists that use acrylics. You've got artists who use an airbrush. You've got an artist who will just use crayon or pencil or charcoal. There's so many realms to scale modeling. You've got those who would, you know, and I don't think we can say what isn't and what is scale modeling. You know, in fact, if you build something wooden from the, you know, those wooden kits that you get, whether it's a boat or whether it's just a car, in theory, it's still some sort of.
It's how it started, right?
Yeah.
To me, the first kits were wood.
Were wooden. But it's but I'm glad we've moved off the politics anyway, because you know it is difficult, and I know there's so many arguments for and against, and I get it all. But as long as the hobby maintains itself, and that we are the, in terms of we are the we are the ones that need to pass it on. You know, it's
the custodians.
The custodian. It's not our hobby to keep. And so it's how it kind of feels to me that we need to put more emphasis on the scale modeling than anything outside. So what if Airfix are getting their kits from India? Doesn't put off the fact that those are readily available. Would it be nice if they moved the manufacturing closer? Who knows? But after talking to Airfix and actually and talking to other people, it's not an overnight problem. And I think if Airfix did decide, sorry, Celtic, that's naughty. This comment caught my eye. Yeah. He built the Airfix blue tip. It's very good. You bugger. You got me off my pizza. But to bring back manufacturing in this country it's not just we've got £30 million we're going to build a factory and house all these tools. Getting them out of India is going to be a nightmare. It's the politics. You know, the kits will naturally go up in price because wages, you know, cost of living is subjective to where you live, you know, there's all sorts. So at the moment, I did think that they could have moved it all to Poland, but I don't think when Europe happened, the split happened, I think that was taken right off the table.
And that makes sense for Airfix with Brexit because of that, because it would have been such an unknown of what was happening.
What's happening?
You know, let's say we had stayed in the EU, there probably would have been a high likelihood that it would have gone across. But again, it's a cost that Revel don't have compared to Airfix. Revel are in the EU; they don't have to worry about that. Airfix do. But I think the main thing to take away from all this conversation is actually it's not quite as simple as it seems, and it's all very strategic why things are done. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Revel, I mean, Revel are, if you think, you say they don't have the cost, but they kind of do, because when they move stuff into this country, it's coming from the EU. They only have a central warehouse now in the UK. I've done almost no business with Revel since they've done that.
Yeah, I mean, when I say no cost,
generally buy now through wholesalers the stuff that I need. I still sell Revel kits. There's no point in having the account with them. So,
but generally, what I mean by that is the manufacturing complication of their main from their distribute. They have to distribute outside the EU, whereas Airfix they'd have to manufacture it and then get it into the UK, which would be an extra level of then.
But then, if you like, you know, in terms of again going to the central point of taxes and tariffs and imports and stuff, we pay more for Revel kits than you do in Europe.
Yeah.
So generally, what you pay in euros, you'll pay in pounds in the UK. So you're paying 20% more or less.
Yeah.
So we do pay for it because you can't now order directly from Revel GmbH and pay for that yourself. You know, you have to get it in the UK, and it's more expensive. So we have ended up paying for it ourselves. You know.
Yeah. That's it. But then,
But then most Revel kits are probably not worth paying for anyway. So
the trouble is, though, Alex, is we've been paying. You know, I remember when the banks crashed and everything, and we were told that for a season that would go up to 20%. It's never gone back down. So we've always had that VAT on us, which to me is criminal. And you know, the thought of them putting VAT on fuels was actually disgusting. All right, they only put up to 5% VAT, which allegedly they couldn't have done if we were in Europe, allegedly, as I was told.
I think there's one great lesson, though, to take away from this, is that if you ever want to go get a model kit and not to be charged for taxes, book a holiday to that country and take a large suitcase, and chances are.
Yeah. But won't they get you on the way back, though?
Not if you go through the Green Channel, they won't, because, you know, I'm not saying that when I've been to Italy, I've taken large suitcases and then come back, you know.
I've been tempted to nip over to America to pick up a couple of round twos. Do you know what I mean?
When we went to Telford, our tickets came with luggage, right? So you could check one piece of luggage each. Everything that I brought with me was in my carry-on, right? My carry-on, my small personal thing.
Yeah.
I used that luggage to bring all the kits back. It was great. Yeah.
What he's not telling you is he wore underwear, same pair for 3 days.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can wear
But
underwear.
those-
You can wear underwear for 4 days. You just turn it in. You turn it back to front,
Oh,
then inside out, then back to front, inside out. You can
that's
wear-
like Krusty the Clown stuff, dude.
but there we go. That's the sacrifices that you make to go get your models, and you get a nice holiday as well.
I do wonder, just out of putting it out there, with Tamiya kits, etc. When what sort of costings do they put in? I'm just when you see about the Tamiya kits coming over here, say for that M36 Jackson was £39. I do wonder, because they do it in house, whether the wage bill for that would be any much different than if they had got it in other countries, or whether they've never even thought of changing where they produce their kits to cost save. They just rather keep it in a particular
But
country.
that's
for their own
mentality
QC.
though of the
Yeah.
Japanese. They want everything in house that they have control in. The only interesting thing, for example, is if you go to Japan itself and you go look at Aoshima, Fujimi, Tamiya, they're all a lot cheaper there. And that is because of the import taxes that we pay over here when we import.
Yeah.
And that is why there is the running joke that you go to Tokyo, you do take an extra suitcase, because you will make your money back and more by buying the Tamiya kits you've always wanted in Japan and then bringing them back.
Yes, if I went to Japan, it'd be very expensive.
I would be taking everything out of the boxes, cutting off all the spare frames and condensing everything down.
Yeah.
To make
That's
it
it.
like as
bring
light
back the
as small as
plastic.
possible.
Yeah, what you need to do is get the kits over there. Just make sure the instructions are on scale mates, and away you go, isn't it? Like,
Leave all of that.
plastic decal. Yeah.
That's another couple of kits.
Interesting point from Cruno. Well, a lot of Airfix kits are cheaper here in the EU comparing to Europe.
Yep. When I've been to Italy, there's a model shop I go to in Rome, which is about 15-minute walk from where I normally stay. And Airfix is always cheaper there, and they normally have any release of the last 5 years, because for some reason Airfix does not sell well in Italy. So if there's a particular kit, so like I was after the previous boxing, the 48 Sea Fury, and you can't get it anywhere in the UK unless you pay a bit of a premium for it. Go to Italy, they had it on the shelf and it was discounted because nobody wanted it. And again,
the Type 45 Destroyer, $30.
Yeah.
I received a shipment from my my very good supplier.
Yes.
Did he send it over in a suitcase? Did he? Did he send it over in a suitcase?
No, two massive boxes.
Yeah.
But
they've gone from India to the US to
UK.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But again, this is the madness of it all. But like in Italy, you have if you spend over €75 in certain shops, you can then get the tax back as well. But it's not the full 22%. You only get 10 to 13. I found out when I actually went back, thinking I'd had a great deal on a piece of Lego. Went to the tax office and went, "Oh yes, sir, you can get it back. Oh, it's only 10%, but you charged me 22%." And they're like, "Yeah, but handling fee, sir."
Oh, handling fee. Yeah, that handling fee. Question: when is the Airfix Artemis going to be released? Well, I hear it's October, maybe a month before, but it would definitely release before Telford for sure. We've got there's I think that's it really. We've got the Mark 9 coming out, Mark 9C. We've got that helicopter,
Wessex. That's
the
what
Wessex.
I want. I need the Wessex.
And then we've got the space shuttle, and then that release they're having at Telford that they'll bring out, which would be good.
I think
John is an international smuggler.
No, it's John. John is an international man of mystery.
He is.
He is, yeah. But yeah, so I think we come to some sort of ending to this one. Basically, everything will come out in the wash. And as I said, sometimes things do get heated, but then we're all friends here. At the end of the day, we have different viewpoints, but that doesn't take us from the fact that we are passionate scale modelers. We love scale modeling. We, as I said, we are the custodians of this, and we do try to enhance, encourage, provide info, help on building scale models. And so any that I have left tonight, don't be put off. We'll be back to normal next week. I'll think of an easier subject. I don't know, something easy. Should women? No, I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
God.
Yeah. Should we be building kits with the band symbol on the tail from Germany? That's another good subject to have, isn't it?
No, I think the best one would be what is the correct grey for an F-16?
Yeah, that's a good one.
All
Yeah.
of the grey.
It's olive drab, really, olive drab.
How many ice cubes does Zoe eat in the 2 hour?
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm running out of ice cubes.
Ice cubes. Anyway, thanks for. I'm going to leave it here now. We've done quite a bit tonight. Just quickly plug my t-shirt, available in the description box below. There's only 100 being made, so if you want to grab one, just click that link and go and purchase one. Thanks all. Thank you, John Alec. Thank you, James. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim, for coming on tonight.
Sure?
And we'll be back next Monday with something a little bit more easy to be in the middle of. Anyway,
Can I
folks,
just
take
take
care.
one last thing, Moss, before you sign off?
Yeah, go.
So we talked about younger modelers. If you guys do want to support a younger modeler, my channel members have actually set something up where you can buy a kit at my shop, which will be donated to a young modeler that comes in. So if you want to do that, if you head over to my shop, it's an inspiration donation, it's called.
Fantastic.
Very
That's
cool.
right, mate. No worries. Have a good one, folks. We'll see you next Monday.